The Pittsburgh Penguins have been the biggest early season surprise in the National Hockey League. Against all expectations, they sit tied for first in the Metro over a dozen of games into the new season. But a lot of people are talking about how they might come back down to earth. So on today's show, we'll be diving deep into this organization and answer the questions. Are they right? Is this team bound to fall back down to earth? And how they might be wrong, and the Pittsburgh Penguins can continue to surprise the entire National Hockey League.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I'm your host, Sebastian High, the USA Scout over at Elite Prospects. And on today's show, we're actually going to be kicking things off with something that isn't too prospect related. We're talking mainly in the first segment about the Pittsburgh Penguins, top to bottom, looking at them both analytically and with the eye test of what's been going very right and what might end up going wrong if they do fall back down closer to where they were expected to be in the standings. But in the second segment, we're going to take a look at this wave of young talent coming through this team, featuring the likes of rookies Ben Kindel and Harrison Brunicke, and how this movement could also keep this Penguins team afloat in playoff aspirations, a last shot at the can with the legendary Hall of Fame core of this team of Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Chris Letang. And finally, we'll wrap up the episode by looking at Wilkes-Barre in the AHL, a couple standouts that have already been playing some games in the National Hockey League, and Owen Pickering and Ville Koivunen, and have been lighting it up in the A, as well as looking a bit more beyond the scopes of the organization with Will Horcoff and Bill Zonnon. So strap yourselves in, especially if you are a Penguins fan, because this episode is all yours. We're focusing on your team top to bottom. But before we dive into the entire show here, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So Penguins, this has been a fascinating team to watch so far in this early season. There's a lot of players that have been really, really fun in terms of whether it be the storylines, of course, of Malkin and Crosby turning back time and producing like they were in their primes to start off this season, or going through the lineup, some surprising stars in terms of offensive production, pitching in on offense from the blue line, and in goal. There's a lot to dig into, but there's no way that we can start here other than Evgeny Malkin, a player that, of course, has already cemented a Hall of Fame entry, has an awards list as long as the eye can see pretty much throughout his career. But so far this season, in 14 games, he has 3 goals, but 16 assists for 19 points. That is prime Malkin numbers. I mean, of course, the sample size isn't huge, and his ice time has gone down. He's averaging around 17 minutes a night, but it's kind of bifurcated. There's a lot of games where he's playing 14 and he's being sheltered, and other games he's playing over 20. So there seems to be a bit of like a dance going on in terms of how Malkin is being used here so far this campaign. But in terms of production, he's right at the top of a National Hockey League. I mean, he really doesn't have that much competition who's above him in production. He's tied with Nick Suzuki and Jack Eichel with 19 points, and the only players who exceed him are Mark Scheifele, Nathan MacKinnon, and one Connor McDavid, who between them only have 4 combined points in advance over Malkin. They're all within striking distance, all have 20 or 21 points on the season. And Malkin's just been terrific. That playmaking touch, the deception, the blending of power and skill that he's just become so synonymous with throughout his time as a Penguin is back in full force here this season. He's not as fast as he used to be, but he's adapting, and I definitely think he's going to exceed the impact he had last season, where he scored 34 assists in the entire campaign. He's almost half of the way there now. And I mean, 50 points in 68 games last season did not jump off the page, but if he can keep up at a over point a game pace this season, and Sidney Crosby, I think, is pretty much money for doing that anyways, the Penguins have a shot. Like, those two players, right? They can break open games. And let's talk about Sid, because the 38-year-old captain here of the Pittsburgh Penguins is, in terms of athletic age, seemingly closer to 30 than he is to 40, and has just been so consistently, I mean, 90-point player the last 3 seasons, each time with between 91 and 94 in production. Before that, was missing some games, but he's just constantly over a point a game. You have to really look back. I mean, I don't think he's ever had a single season where he hasn't been over a point per game, which is an insane stat line. But he's keeping up that pace here this season with 9 goals and 17 points in 14 games. And any trade rumors that have been bubbling up, whether it be to the Colorado Avalanche or the Montreal Canadiens, which we hear a lot about here in the Canadian news cycle, that's certainly on pause, as long as Pittsburgh is winning games and Sidney Crosby is, the difference maker night in, night out. That conversation keeps getting pushed back further and further. So between those two, the Penguins have certainly had a lot of offensive punch here this season. I also wanted to mention, in goal, Arturs Silovs has been a revelation, being picked up. I mean, I cannot fathom why the Vancouver Canucks sold on him so cheaply after so many years of development invested in this player and really strong performances. I thought he just got better and better with time. And yeah, he didn't play very well in his 10 NHL games last season, but this has always been a goaltender I respected a lot. Has a really good frame at 6'4", 203 pounds. And so far he's had 7 games played, a .913 save percentage, and a 3-2-2 record. And what is also allowed is that Tristan Jarry is playing some of the better hockey in that we can remember from him in recent years. He's had a .911 save percentage here this season. Just his best situation, in my opinion, to share the crease, not to be like a backup who's playing very little, or on the inverse, like we've seen quite often, a starting netminder is playing 60-plus games, 55 games or more a season. I just don't think that he's at his best with that workload. But if this tandem can continue, and this tandem's been winning them games quite consistently, the Penguins, again, have a shot. There are these aspects that, okay, if they slow down, the Penguins' success will slow down. But if they don't, these are driving structural factors in winning hockey games. Scoring goals and keeping pucks out of the goal, quite obviously, 2 of the key things to do on the ice. And the Penguins have been doing well at those things. And I wanted to read out some metrics and analytics that really paint the picture, I think, of what's been going great, where there might be a return to the mean, to the median, like a regression incoming, and also how the Penguins could compensate for that regression, in not hoping that there is no statistical regression where there will inevitably be one, but instead to elevate their game in a different area to compensate and offset that a little bit. So far this season, at 5-on-5, the Pittsburgh Penguins are almost bang net zero. They have, in terms of expected goals on the ice, of what they're generating versus what they're allowing, 49.53% expected goals at even strength at 5-on-5. That is fine. That's solid. It's better than expected. This team was apparently supposed to be in the Gavin McKenna sweepstakes this season. And instead, even if you're just looking at chances generated, not even at the standings, which obviously tell the story on their own, this team is doing well. Like they are doing better than was expected of them, and their lineup, perhaps in terms of depth and balance, would indicate that they'd be at this stage. And in terms of total expected goals, so if we're including all the messy stuff, the penalty kill, the power play, the 4-on-3, the 3-on-3 overtime, all of it, every single shift on the ice that the Penguins have played this season, that expected goal number really booms. It goes up to the 9th best in the league at 52.45%. That is very good. That indicates that the Penguins are not allowing all that much on the PK, and they are really, really threatening on the power play. And wouldn't you know it, This also correlates to kind of their scoring numbers this season. At 5-on-5, they have 29 goals scored, 28 goals allowed. And in terms of all phases of play, that's 49 goals scored. That's 20 more than just at 5-on-5. That's a massive number. Almost like 40% of what they're generating so far has not been coming at 5-on-5 in terms of where the goals come from. And in terms of goals allowed, goes all the way down to 38. So they go to 11 more goals scored than conceded here this season, but only one more at 5-on-5. And this is also where a lot of what we've been hearing about with the Penguins is like PDO, right? The PDO is going to drag them back. If you're active on Twitter, you've seen PDO and Penguins in the same sentence, definitely put together multiple times. If you're not familiar with what PDO stands for, it's basically the quality of chances that your team has on the ice and the quality of chances that the opposing team has on the ice, and the actual goals scored between those two metrics, how they relate to those stats. So basically, overperforming, underperforming, and in the end, everything kind of gravitates back towards the zero line, which is in this case a 1.00 line. And if you're above that, and the Penguins are above that in terms of total, end at 5-on-5. At 5-on-5, they're 10th in the league with a 1.012. And in terms of all situations, this is where it looks a bit more unsustainable. They're second in the league in terms of being the luckiest or getting the most bounces in their way at a 1.038, which is means quite a bit in terms of right now they're scoring more than they're probably supposed to, and they're conceding less than they're probably supposed to. However, this also indicates this is coming largely outside 5-on-5. This boom is very much on the power play, and the power play has just been scoring at such an insane clip so far relative to what they've been generating in terms of quality of chances. And of course, guys like Crosby, like Malkin play a really big part in that, but they're not alone in it either. I want to give a big shout out to Justin Brazeau, who, I mean, big power forward, has been in the league for a few years at this point since coming through the Toronto Maple Leafs organization, but was quickly moved over to the Boston Bruins organization, got moved at the deadline last year to Minnesota, and his best year so far in the National Hockey League was with Boston last year. And he had 10 goals and 20 points before getting shipped off to Minnesota, where he scored 1 goal and 1 assist in 19 games. But this far this season with the Penguins playing a middle six role, he's not getting like massive ice time out here either. He has 6 goals and 12 points in 12 games. That is fantastic. And hopefully, I hope for him that it continues. That would be a great storyline this season. Anthony Mantha as well has been really good so far since coming over to Pittsburgh after missing most of last season to injury with the Calgary Flames. But so far with Pittsburgh, he's been staying healthy. Fingers crossed that continues. And in 14 games, he has 6 goals and 11 points. So a lot more depth scoring coming up here for Pittsburgh, and that will have to continue if this team is going to take big steps in the right direction and continue to maintain this spot in the front half of the standings. And you're also going to want to see them try to offset some of this ballooned power play scoring with more even strength production. So if you're a Penguins coach, you're probably trying to get your players to produce more, make a bigger difference at even strength. The power play is going great. Hopefully it continues to do so. PK's been doing well as well. But it really is at even strength where they're treading water right now, but if you want to maintain a spot this high in the standings, you have to do better than that. So really getting that up to the even strength scoring as well is going to be key. And I think a player that could certainly play a role in doing this, who we'll talk about here coming up, is Benjamin Kindel. But before we do that, we've got a quick message from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's so easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface that you can access anywhere, from your laptop or even from your mobile device. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where it is that my money's going and how to make it work harder for me. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for half off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All righty. So for the second segment, we'll be talking about Benjamin Kindel, Harrison Brunicke, and Rutger McGroarty, who is on his way back from injury, skating now with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. And we'll kick things off with Ben Kindel, who has upped his season goal tally to 5 in 12 games. That is fantastic in terms of goal scoring, especially for a player who's been more lauded for his playmaking than his goal scoring in junior play, though he's always been a dual threat, not to take anything away from his goal scoring, which has always been a strength. The playmaking, really, the intelligence, the deception, this is always what, at least I myself, and I know a lot of scouts that I've had conversations with, see as his biggest NHL tool at the end of the day. When he's finished developing, that he will be built around that playmaking skill. But he has 5 tallies so far this season. No assists just yet. Still waiting on that first NHL assist. But 5 goals on the season puts him 4th in team goal scoring, behind only Mantha, Brazeau, and Crosby. So can't complain about that in terms of season start for the very, very young, recently drafted forward who can play at right wing. And he's mainly been playing at right wing for this team, but has the IQ to play center. So that's always something to keep in mind with this player, as well, as if he's able to establish himself down the middle long term. But he's a hard-working player, 5'11", 181 pounds as a right shot forward. And I've been very impressed with what I've seen so far. He played a massive role in that game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. He had over 22 minutes of ice time, really, really influencing play with his movements on and off puck. Very, very much prodding at the defensive structure there in Toronto and forcing difficult decisions. And I think really opening up a lot of time and space for his teammates on the puck. And he got 2 goals out of that game, playing over 22 minutes of ice time for a player that's been mainly playing between 12 and 14 every single night here so far in his young career. This was a massive, massive increase in deployment for him. So glad to see they did well, even though that 3-0 lead imploded in the third period with a big comeback from Toronto there to win 4-3 in the end in this weekend's game. But Ben Kindel is continuing to impress, and he's a guy that I think with his level of intelligence, with his adaptability, is only going to get more and more comfortable here at the NHL level. And I think he's a special talent here for Pittsburgh. Can he be a top-line guy in the end? I'm not sure. I'm not convinced of that just yet in terms of long-term contending projections. But in terms of like a second-line potential offensive driver, whether it be from the middle or up the wing, I think that this guy has a lot of upside within this organization. Will be a really big part in the handing off of the reins once the legends that are Crosby, Malkin, and of course Chris Letang do hang up the skates or move on to different challenges around the National Hockey League. But Kindel's been great, and Harrison Brunicke as well. Very good start for the young player. He's now played in 9 games here so far this season, has 1 goal to his name that came against the New York Islanders in an early season victory. And Brunicke is just doing the things that he does quite well at the NHL level from everything that I've seen. His minutes are being managed quite closely, very much a third pairing type of deployment, and his mobility standing out a lot, allowing him to really just mop things up, especially against the rush. I think his rush defending has been strong so far in his young NHL career. And beyond that, I think that a handling skill is going to open up more offensive opportunities as well down the road. It hasn't really translated all that much offense just yet, but there are these flashes and moments where he shows how skilled he is in possession. And I think that the possibility of really rising that up into offensive production, if that happens towards the end of this season, I think that would demonstrate a really big jump in what the youth movement, especially on the blue line, can do here in Pittsburgh, especially in terms of potentially taking on power play responsibilities at some point down the line. And also wanted to mention Rutger McGroarty is on his way back, has not yet to play a game here so far this season, but he is returning to the ice. He's skating. Don't know which game he's going to make his return on just yet, but expect that to be in the next week or two. So there's an exciting talent coming back. We'll probably start in the AHL with the Penguins, but might get a call up at some point this season. He looked quite decent in the games that he got, the 8 games he got in the National Hockey League last campaign. Got 3 points there and had 39 points in 60 games in the American League. And I think if Rutger McGroarty can catch his footing and get a call up, that's another top 9 player that you're adding to your organization who can play hard, intelligent minutes at both ends of the ice and offer you some depth goal scoring as well. So there are these pieces in the organization that can be there to fill in down the stretch and maybe even bump other guys down a peg in the depth chart. But these young guys are definitely going to be playing a role. But we're going to be talking about 2 more of them. But because they played a pretty big role with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins so far this season, we're keeping it for the last segment where we're talking AHL and in the system guys to keep an eye on. But before we do that, we've got a quick message here from our sponsors at Locked On NHL Prospects. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every single game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push to get back in the contest. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be such a massive headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's so easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. I recently used Game Time to grab seats for a Habs game against the Philadelphia Flyers, and it could not have been any simpler. I had great seats in minutes and could even check my seat view before checkout to make sure that I had a clear sight line and would be able to be at the edge of my seat for all of the action. Their zone deals are a total game changer. You pick the section, Game Time picks your seats, and you win big. You can even find NHL tickets for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Alrighty, let's wrap up the show here in the final segment, talking about the Pittsburgh Penguins, and we're really focusing here on the AHL and a pair of non-AHLers here to wrap up the show. And it's hard to not start off with Ville Koivunen, player who I've loved since his draft year. I've been a massive fan of his speed, intelligence, and intensity going back to when he was a draft eligible, and he ended up being a second-round selection by the Carolina Hurricanes there in 2021. And he's just made massive progression year in and year out from being a really reliable half-point-a-game guy in Liga, great coming out of the draft, to taking a massive step in 23-24 with Karpat going almost a point a game there in the top division of Finnish hockey, to last season being one of the top scorers and top play drivers with the Scranton Penguins with 56 points in 63 games, and also getting in 7 assists late in the season with Pittsburgh in 8 contests. And then this season, so far, he leads Wilkes-Barre Scranton in scoring with 11 points, including 4 goals in just 6 games, because he has gotten a call up and played 7 games with Pittsburgh, getting 1 assist on his way. This player is the driver in the AHL when he's there, and he's a fantastic depth option in the National Hockey League when he does get those call-ups. And his versatility, his ability to play a fourth-line checking role, bringing intensity and speed and pressure and being able to chip in on the penalty kill if you need him there, to being a power play playmaker, a real line driver up the lineup. He's quite close, I think, to me playing that kind of role in Pittsburgh's top 9 as well, maybe by year's end. He's seemingly just taking that step to a dominant AHL creator this season. Ville Koivunen is a player to watch out for, and I think this is another guy that has a lot of second line upside for this team and could even be a complementary guy on a first line between him and Kindel. You might get one of them that ends up playing that role up the right-hand flank long-term on the top unit. But Owen Pickering kind of in a similar seat where he's been fantastic in the AHL. He has 4 points in 7 games, really bringing his ranginess, his size, and learning to use his physicality more effectively this season in the AHL. And he's also gotten into 4 NHL games with Pittsburgh here as of late, playing their last 4 games here in the end of October, beginning of November. Very sheltered minutes throughout, playing between 10 and 13 a night. But Owen Pickering is another guy that could be taking that step within the next year to being a full-time NHLer who brings a lot of tools to the equation. I think he's really gotten better as a mover, as a skater here in the last couple of years. He's really grown into his frame at 6'5", 201 pounds. He's filling it out, and he is a big customer, difficult to beat off the rush, difficult to get around or inside of him. And he protects the middle of the ice really, really effectively. So another youngster to keep an eye on, but really the story of the AHL and of Wilkes-Barre Scranton so far this season, it's got to be Sergei Murashov in net, the young Russian netminder, only 21 years of age, but at 6'2", 187 pounds, and a right catching goaltender. He's not your conventional type of frame or profile for a netminder. He sticks out a little bit. And that also extends to what he's been doing here recently. I mean, last year he was dominant with the Wheeling Nailers in the ECHL with a .922 save percentage and looked really good in his AHL minutes, getting a .913 save percentage in 16 starts. And so far this season, he has been the uncontested starter with 7 games played so far. And he has a .931 save percentage, a 5-2 record. Really, really taking a leap forward here this season, Sergei Murashov, for a player who was selected in the 4th round in 2022. He has been taking strides, and he might be another option in net who, if a guy like Jarry falters this season, and maybe that ends up being Silovs as well, but I doubt it. I really have a lot of confidence in that player. Maybe Murashov gets a shot in net for a game or two to see if that mixes things up enough for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So another guy to really keep an eye on. But moving to a pair of guys that are not in the organization just yet, but are in the system. Got to kick things off with Will Horcoff of the University of Michigan. Tremendous start to the campaign. 10 games played. He has 10 goals and 4 assists for 14 points. It's a goal a game with potentially the best team in the nation here so far this season. The University of Michigan are back to their winning ways, and he's been a massive, massive part of it, just scoring night in, night out from the net front, from the bumper. He can score from range. He's got a heavy release. He's able to score those dirty goals, those quick reflexes in tight. Also just winning the inside, winning body position with that big frame at 6'5", 203 pounds. He's not the most dynamic player in the world, but he's a very intelligent guy. His intelligence always impresses me every game I watch, because I have him almost like in my mind in a category of like, oh, he's a big power forward, right? He has a good shot, all these different things. But the IQ is really impressive, especially in terms of his off the wall play, getting pucks from the wall, from the boards to the middle of the ice. Will Horcoff is a really quick thinker with just a single little deft puck touch, bounces the puck right into the path of a line mate who's streaking up ice. I think he's gotten quicker as well to his reactions to teammates when they're in playmaking positions, to pop out of coverage and make himself open as a shooting option, and timing that a lot more proactively than he used to. There's all these details, I think, that he's growing, that this is a player that could really be a great middle six scorer for the Penguins long term and offer value both on the power play and the penalty kill. I think he's a versatile player, brings some physicality, but also some skill and intelligence and scoring touch, net front presence to the mix. There's so much value here, and I think that he's turning out to be a great selection by Pittsburgh at 24th overall. But we cap things off for today's episode with the guy selected 2 picks before him, and that is Bill Zonnon, who's honestly, his style of play isn't all that different. This is equally a highly intelligent, big-bodied center 6'2", 190 pounds, but this guy's heavy. He's really solid. But with Zonnon, it's less goal scoring and more playmaking. A lot of playmaking IQ with Bill Zonnon, who is just returning from injury right now as we speak. Got into his first game of the season on Saturday against Gatineau in a 3-1 victory. Did not earn a point in his first game back, but he's now in his first game with Blainville-Boisbriand after the offseason trade from his Rouyn-Noranda Huskies. And this is a powerhouse team. With of course you have Carbonneau there, the St. Louis Blues draft pick, who is just of course scoring goals as always. You have a top 5 draft candidate in Xavier Villeneuve. You have Matteo Nobert, the Vegas Golden Knights draft pick, has also been on fire here this season. There's so much skill in this lineup, and of course, Zonnon has to find his place within it, but he's got all the IQ, all the skill, all the power in the world to be a key first-line player on that team. And if he is that, look for his production to just blossom this season. So the Penguins, they're in a good spot. They're winning games in the NHL. They are scoring power play goals, even when the numbers don't say that they should be scoring as many as they are. They're still going in right now. They're getting those bounces. And that even strength game, it can improve. There's players in the pipeline that can be called up if need be. You have players within the lineup, I think, as well, that can elevate their play. Like Ricard Raquel staying healthy, of course, is also an important part of all of this. There are the pieces with this lineup to not just be the lottery pick that everyone expected them to be this season. So been very exciting to watch this organization, and I'd be curious to hear from you Penguins fans. Does this feel sustainable to you? Where do you think that your team's going to finish the season, and who have you been most impressed by in your organization? Is it Malkin like returning back time and being like the driving force on offense, or is it a player in the system like Will Horcoff scoring a goal a game, or Sergei Murashov in net seemingly being an important piece of the future here in the crease for the Pittsburgh Penguins? I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please do make sure to make us your first listen of the day. It's always greatly appreciated. And for your second listen, you're going to head on over to Locked On Fantasy Hockey, where Flip and Steel break down everything you need to know to build yourself a competitive and sustainable fantasy roster that keeps you winning year after year. But that is it here for us today. I am your host, Sebastian High, the USA Scout at Elite Prospects. Thank you so much for tuning in as always, and I'll catch you listening again very, very soon.